Qatar 2022 World Cup starts on Sunday. It will be the first time a World Cup is held in the Middle East, and it will also be the first Winter World Cup to be held in Northern Hemisphere. But one of the biggest setbacks for FIFA ahead of the start is that the Qatari royal family want a total stadium ban on alcohol, which has left FIFA in a precarious position ahead of the World Cup opener, and they are trying to appease both parties, both the royal family and the sponsors. The Qatari royal family have made their feelings very clear, which could have huge implications because Budweiser, the official beer sponsor of the FIFA World Cup, now also want not just selling rights, but also they want their banners to be displayed in and around the stadium. At this hour, and not doing so could lead to a breach of a multi-million-dollar contract. At this hour, I am joined by Voice of America journalist who is in Doha, Aiko Paluzzi. Thank you very much for joining us from there. 48 hours for the kickoff. Yet another crisis strikes FIFA. The Qatari royal family now does not want beers to be sold inside stadiums.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. This is the news of the day, and we can say that according to a source close to the Qatar organization, this was predictable. Although, we saw in the last days the organization trying to move the Budweiser stands outside the stadium or in hidden places. So it's not a big news, a surprise, because according to what we saw, this was what the government wanted. So now Budweiser has a 75 million agreement, a sponsorship with FIFA. So this is a big problem, and we know that it's inside the stadium and even around the stadium. Only in the fan festivals, alcohol will be available.
But Akopo, tell us, will beer be available at the fan parks? I understand they will not be sold in the stadiums, but what about the fan parks?
Yes, according to our sources, yes, it's only inside the stadiums and around the stadiums. In the stadium, only if you are in the hospitality, in the luxury suites, these areas, you can get alcohol, but only if you have like a suit or things like this. Fan festivals, yes, and this is a big problem for fans because a lot of people we talked to, they were already complaining about the fact that the alcohol is super expensive and hard to find. And now it's going to be impossible to get alcohol inside and around stadiums.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you can't bring in alcohol through duty-free, right? Anyone who brings in has to give a sin tax.
Exactly. The Qatar government controls alcohol. It's a very strict control. So even if you bring alcohol with a duty-free, you are not allowed. So it's very, very hard. If you are here around in Doha, even in the city center, it's very hard. You have to go to a hotel, a very expensive hotel, and the price is crazy. I mean, if you want to get a beer, you can pay $10, and it's very, very hard to find beers, even around the city, just to let you understand.
Well, tell me about, the other controversies. There have been many, and one of which I've just heard that a British Bahraini social media influencer, Amjad Taha, saying that Ecuador players have been bribed to lose the opening game to Qatar by 1-0.
Yeah, according to what they are saying, this is a big problem. And especially now with the opening Ecuador versus Qatar, this can create problems, but we understand that the position of the government is that they don't want to have drunk people attending the games. They don't want to have problems inside the stadiums and around. Qatar is a very particular country, and the idea of not allowing people to drink is to maintain the public calm and to avoid problems and troubles.
What about the bribery allegations? What do you think about them, and what are you hearing about the bribery allegations?
Well, we saw about the bribery, many investigations by The Guardian, newspapers around the world, New York Times. they demonstrated this reality, even though it's always nothing confirmed. The Qatar government, the organization always denied these accusations. Obviously, there are investigations. So in my opinion, this is what the newspapers, the media revealed. Then, obviously, the official sources denied all these accusations.
Right, these are very serious allegations and quite sensational. In fact, 48 hours to the kickoff. Let me ask you, how safe are you feeling as a journalist? Because we saw a Danish journalist being told to stop during his live broadcast, and there was a little bit of altercation between him and the Qatari authorities.
Well, the Danish case, we have to say that then the organizers apologized with the journalists. But it's true, if you don't go around with this credential, you can even film outside the venues. I mean, this is the only way you are allowed. Like, if you can see a camera symbol. Yeah. So we feel safe. There is a lot of security, but at the same time, we know that journalists are not super welcome. But if you have the right approval, you are allowed to be outside and shoot without causing problems.
How welcome are the fans? Yesterday we heard of a dress code for the fans, no showing of shoulder, midriff, knees, and perhaps stricter regulations for women. What are the reactions you are picking up on ground?
Well, as far as we saw here in the city center, everybody is allowed to dress as they want. There are no problems. But it's true that especially if you are inside stadiums or near the mosques or things like this, you have to maintain a dress code that is properly to the place. But as far as we saw, we didn't see any problem. We will see, obviously, there are people like, super covered, but then there are like women dressed in Western clothes. So it's kind of interesting to see one thing and then a completely different outfit. So everything is quite tolerated now, as far as we know.
If you have to give a word of caution to fans traveling there, what would that be? Or journalists?
They have to respect the rules of the country. I mean, every country has a different culture. So remember, this is a Muslim country. They have, like, today is Friday, this is the holiday, everything is closed. So if they don't want you to drink, don't drink. I mean, actually, the freedom of everybody should be respected. But at the same time, you are in Qatar, so my advice, if you don't want to have troubles, to follow the rules and follow the laws. I mean, this is the minimum, and I think it's pretty understandable.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us from Qatar, and we will get to you to hear all the ringside view and all that is happening there on ground. Thank you for joining us.